You are listening to the Love and Confidence Podcast, episode number 99. Welcome to the Love and Confidence Podcast. If you're a woman who wants to feel more irresistible, have more fun, and create deeper and more authentic connections, this podcast is for you. I am your host, certified life coach Lærke Nielsen, and I help you become the best and most confident version of yourself so you can attract the love life you desire. Let's get started. Hey ladies, I have a treat for you today. Because a few weeks ago, I asked Master Coach Sara Fisk if she wanted to be a guest on my podcast and share her wisdom and nuggets about people pleasing and why we women tend to do that a lot. Sara is the go-to coach for those who want to stop people pleasing, and she is someone that everyone in the coaching community that I belong to knows. So I must admit, I was a little bit starstruck when I talked to her. But not only because she's someone we all know, but also because she is so knowledgeable and she's really good at explaining and framing people-pleasing behavior, both in an evolutionary and a societal context. We talk about how we are all trained to please others from the day we are born, and how to start feeling into our own needs and boundaries when we were never taught how to do that. And Sara shares a fun exercise that you can try when you want to set a boundary, and that involves swearing. And you have to listen all the way to the end because there you will get probably the best relationship advice ever on how to keep a long marriage growing and developing, keeping it alive while making space for both parts. And that is from someone who herself has been married almost 27 years. And also, she's offering you a free guide on how to have difficult conversations. So check out the links in the show notes to see more about that and how you can connect with Sara and also listen to her podcast, which is called the Ex Good Girl Podcast. So let's jump into it. Enjoy the episode. So I am so excited to have Sara Fisk with me today, and she is the Stop People Pleasing coach. And I want to just let you introduce yourself and tell us who you help and what are your tools and background.
Well, I am thrilled to be here. We're going to talk about some of my very most favorite things. I am, as you mentioned, a coach. I have been coaching for about 6 years now. I started out actually as a weight loss coach. And what I realized is that I was just trying to use that to make myself lose weight. I was just trying to beat because I was like, I have to lose weight. If I'm going to tell people to lose weight, then I better get skinnier fast. And once I realized that, I thought, what do I actually want to do? And so I started looking at the ways in which people pleasing was really making me try to even make my body be something that I thought would be pleasing to other people. And so I slowed down and I really saw how people pleasing had trapped me. And I decided that that's what I wanted to do. And so I have gone on to become a master certified coach. I have been certified in tools like somatic experiencing and subconscious mind work, and have taken some courses in a modality called parts work or internal family systems that really help me look at the entire woman, the entire, conscious and subconscious of how we as females are raised and indoctrinated in different ways in different countries, but that our best, the best use of our body and of our time is usually for other people, right? That we should be nice, we should be kind, we should be easygoing, and that's what will make people like us. And it's endlessly fascinating to me, and I just love doing it.
Yeah, that is so great. And we just had a little chat before we started about how important it is to stop the people pleasing, be comfortable saying no and setting boundaries in dating and relationships. And there are so many different situations where we can see this is a challenge. And I think especially also in early dating, when we meet someone that we really like and we want to feel connected with, it's even more difficult for a lot of women to set boundaries because they fear that they're going to lose their chance with this guy if they say no to something, right? And so we talked about there are different ways that we people please and where we sort of abandon ourselves a little bit, both in dating and relationships. And one of the things I would like to talk about is this concept that we can call overgiving or overfunctioning. We can also call it man pleasing, where it's either can show up in early dating, where we do all the work for the connection. We take initiative, we invite on a date, and we maybe even pay on the date. So a lot of the women I coach, they are high achievers and they are capable of paying for the dates. And so doing all this work and maybe also buying expensive presents and so on. And then later on in the relationship, it could be all the sort of traditional things that women are expected to do, take care of him, cook, clean, do the laundry, and all that. It's like we're mothering him. We're
Yeah.
doing a lot more. And I see this showing up when typically a man is not showing up in the connection. He is not showing up in the way that it should be in an equal relationship. And then because we think, then this is a solution. If I go all in on pleasing him, then he will give back. He will start giving back. And then what happens?
What ends up happening is you have women who are frustrated and resentful
Yeah.
because they thought, if I focus on him first, if I make him comfortable, if I make this easy for him, if I make him feel cared for, and if I make him feel like he's important to me, then he's going to give that back to me.
Mm. And unfortunately, the result is the opposite often. Like
Yes.
he just becomes more leaned back and more lazy and more passive. And especially in early dating, a woman who's very proactive and very overfunctioning, she risks spending a lot of her time with a man who's actually not that much into the connection. Because for him, it's just easy to say yes when she takes all the initiative.
Yeah.
And inside the relationship, what I also have experienced is that it's kind of killing the attraction when the woman is doing all the things for him and just letting him lie on the couch and have it the easy way.
Yes.
Um, but the challenge is how to stop all this. How do we stop it? Because if we sort of are conditioned in this thinking that we're supposed to show up for him, we're supposed to make him feel good, we're supposed to do all these things. And if we stop doing it, it feels very counterintuitive to do less in order to get a response.
Right. So what you have described is so prevalent, right? Women just giving and giving and giving, hoping that the person they are giving to will give back, whether that's a potential romantic partner or their parents or their children or their boss or their friends, right? Like we can find this dynamic in almost any relationship. In order to stop, the first thing that I teach clients and where I think it's important to begin is with a lot of compassion for how did we get here? Why is this even happening? And so if we want to just zoom way out for just a second, when you and I are born, we're helpless. We are utterly dependent on the bigger, more capable people in our lives, and we have to win their care, right? We have to hope that they take care of us. And all we have in the very beginning is we can cry. And then when we cry, somebody comes and takes care of us, changes our diaper, feeds us, helps us go to sleep. And so in the very beginning, what babies learn is, oh, if I cry, hopefully somebody comes. Now we know that there are places where there are not enough caregivers, like orphanages, where babies actually stop crying completely
Hmm.
because they know it doesn't matter. And hopefully that is not the case of, the people that you and I are working with because they have the experience of being taken care of in some way when they were younger. But if you think about what that creates, here is a child who knows that they have to have the care of the big people. So they have to do what they like. If you've ever seen a baby, and a baby starts smiling, what do all the adults in the room start doing when a baby starts smiling? Oh my gosh, she's smiling. Oh my God, this is so cute. And so baby sees, oh, if they like this, I'm going to smile more. And then it becomes this beautiful reciprocal relationship of baby smiles and they get snuggles and hugs and they get care. And so in the mind of a child, one of the earliest links is I act a certain way and they like it. I do this and they like it. They smile, they hug me, they cuddle me, they give me a snack or a treat. And so baby starts getting bigger. And then they start learning, oh, that the opposite is also true. I do other things and they don't like that.
Mm.
I get punished. I get disconnected. I get put down. Mom's face gets angry. And I'm starting to learn that there are some things that they like and some things that they don't like. And because my survival is completely dependent on winning care from these big people, I have to do a lot of what they like
Mm.
to get that care. And hopefully, all of that is wrapped up in connection and love and belonging and hugs and kisses and snuggles. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. But the point I'm trying to make is that our focus when we are little, because of our survival, is on are they happy with me? The people outside of me. What can I do to win care and affection from them? And if you think back to maybe when you were a girl, like my mom loved it when I helped her. So I would bring her shoes if we were getting ready to go somewhere. And she would say, Sarah, thank you so much. I would notice when she was really stressed and I would try to help with my younger brothers and sisters. Like, shh, don't bother mom. You're making her upset. Right. And so my full focus was outside of me on the people who I needed and depended on, trying to make them happy.
Yeah.
And beginning, that is right. That's correct. Because I can't survive. Like, think about when is a human person actually able to care for all of their needs on their own with no help? I mean, I've got 22-year-old twin boys and it's not yet, right? And so for a long time, we are outward focused on pleasing other people so that we can get belonging, connection, safety, dignity, love, and help. And that is actually not the problem because, as I've said, that's important for survival. The problem is no one shows us that, hey, Sarah, as you're getting older, you're going to notice that overly focusing on other people's comfort and ease and their feelings doesn't make a place for you. And so we need to figure out how to stop pleasing people when that is what is better for you. And that's the change that nobody teaches us how to make,
Mm.
because it is essential that we please other people, that we focus outward on everybody else so that we can get the care that we need. But as we get older, it's essential that we learn how to stop doing that so that we can be in the kinds of relationships that will serve us when we don't need to be taken care of the same way anymore.
Yeah, and it's also quite interesting to see it in that perspective that it's actually a survival mechanism that just had been staying with us for too long and where
That's
at
it.
some point we have to let it go.
That's it.
And if we have a lot of negative thoughts about why can't I stop people pleasing, maybe it can help to have more self-compassion to think about this is a natural part of me surviving throughout the earlier years of my life. And it's only normal that I do this, but now I want to change that pattern.
That's exactly it. I say to every client I work with, you and I are here because we were good people pleasers.
Yeah.
And that's essential. Like we couldn't have done it another way. I don't know who or what organized the way this world works, but babies are how we start, and babies are utterly dependent on big people. There are a lot of women who get caught up in beating themselves up. Why am I still so focused on pleasing other people? I am 30 something years old or 40 something or 50 something or 60 something. Why can't I stop? And while I can understand why brains do that, I think having compassion, like, of course you did that. That's what all of us had to do. Of course, this feeling of wanting to be chosen is very deeply in our survival based biology because we had to be chosen,
Mm.
right? Had to have parents or caregivers choosing us to care for. And so, yeah, when I'm on a date with someone and I am like, is he choosing me? Is he choosing me? Is he going to like me? Is he comfortable? Is he happy? Am I making this easy for him? What is he thinking? Does he like me? That's so normal.
Mm.
That's so normal. And rather than beating ourselves up for that, just recognizing, oh, that's the way my brain was programmed and it worked very well. But now I'm an adult and I have the capacity to develop different skills for me to focus not on being chosen anymore, but on someone who is doing the choosing.
Yeah.
And that's the switch.
Yes. And I find it interesting that you talk about it doesn't really matter the age, because I also have clients that are in the 60s and they tell me it's so difficult for them to find out, how do I say no to a man when I'm not interested in dating him anymore? I don't want to hurt his feelings and I don't want to be impolite. When I see it from a distance, right, I can say, but listen, you only met him once and he's a grown up man. You cannot break his heart already now. So just give him a clear and kind no and let it go. But
Yeah.
it's something that haunts us for a long time, this thing about we have to be nice and we cannot hurt other people's feelings.
Yes. That is such a huge part of how humans who are socialized as women are taught. So the first part that I talked about is like how every single child needs caregivers and how they have to please them. That goes for people who are socialized as men and people who are socialized as women. That's universal.
Mm.
Now, women get an extra layer of programming, right? To be nice, to be kind, to not hurt anybody else's feelings, to be the peacemaker, to be the one who adjusts and accommodates other people. And we have to look at that behavior as well, because men don't get that same programming, right? And men are taught that they are a strong leader if they take a hard position, that they are being an example of somebody who has principles if they say, no, I will not do that. No, I'm not interested in that. And women, what are we taught? We're taught that if we stand up for ourselves and speak in a very clear, definitive way, that we're a bitch or that we're mean or that we're bossy or that we're rude.
Yeah.
And so recognizing the difference in the programming, I think, is a really essential part of understanding, oh, this is why it is hard for me to tell this man, thank you for the date. I appreciate your time. I'm not interested in moving forward. Good luck to you.
Mm.
Like, that's very nice and very kind.
Yeah.
It's not, it's just words, but we are so afraid because we are breaking those good girl rules that on some level, many of us get.
Yeah. And there's also the other situation where we might not say no to dating the person because we like him, we want to continue seeing him, but we want to say no to something he suggests, which I think for some women is maybe even more difficult, because then they feel, well, I should compromise, I should stretch a little bit, I don't want to lose my chance with him. One thing is going home to his private home early on in the dating phase. Another thing is allowing him to kiss her, for instance. I really cheer for women who say no to that early on and who say, okay, this is something we do once we have more emotional connection. But what I also experience is that even if they then manage to say no and they feel that this was the right decision, then afterwards there's a lot of self doubt creeping in about, was I too strict? Is this a reasonable boundary? As if someone could tell us, yeah, that's okay. You can have that as a boundary, it's validated. And I was wondering if you could share some reflections on this self doubt that can come in when finally we have sort of learned a way to set a boundary and how to communicate, and then we do it. And then afterwards, it just feels like, a lot of turbulence inside. Was it right? Did I go too far? Should I have let him? And so on.
That is such a common dynamic. And I still find myself in this kind of permission seeking where I want to take an action, but I want to bounce it off a couple other people first,
Yeah.
right? I want to call you and I want to say, I said this. Is it okay? Was it too strong? Was it too much? And that's part of this outward focus that we're taught from very young. We're taught that if what we want to do is right, someone else will tell us that it's right.
Mm.
We're taught that in order to be safe within our group, there are rules that we need to follow. And if I'm thinking about potentially breaking one of the rules and being even remotely close to unkind to a man by telling him, I'd rather not go back to your apartment tonight or your house or wherever, your private residence, then I need someone else to make me feel good about that. And if someone else tells me, no, Sarah, you're fine. That's totally a normal boundary or preference to have. Then I can relax. And so the switch is to become someone who knows what I want, and I give myself permission
Mm.
to do that. It is a radical change
Yeah.
because we're so used to relying on the thoughts and input of other people that to say to myself, I don't want to go back to his private residence. And I might not even know why, but it doesn't matter because I want to not go back to his private residence. And that's enough. I don't need anyone else to tell me that it's okay or not okay. But to do that, we have to learn to tolerate a different negative emotion. And here's what I mean by that.
Mm.
If I were to say, oh, sure, yeah, let's go back to your house. I'm feeling nervous. I'm feeling anxious. I might be feeling fearful. I'm feeling some self-doubt. But so many women are just used to feeling like that all the time.
Mm.
They know what that feels like. And so I go back to his house. I'm kind of nervous the whole time. I'm sitting on the couch wondering what's going on. I'm kind of watching his every move. And I'm just having to prepare for whatever is next because I don't know what's going to happen. But that's familiar,
Mm.
right? There are so many women who are so used to just kind of feeling on alert all the time. We know how to feel that. We don't like it,
Mm-mm.
but we're used to it. So in order to say, you know what, going back to your private residence does not work for me, but what we could do is meet up for another date next week. In order to say something like that, I have to feel a different kind of anxious and fearful that he's not going to like it, that he's going to think I'm a prude, that he's going to think that I'm not as interested in him as he is in me. I'm going to have to worry about what he's thinking and feeling. But the difference is that new kind of discomfort is what makes it scary. It's that we don't have a lot of practice standing up for what we want and letting other people just feel however they're going to feel about it. That's new. And so it's scary. But the difference is that moves me in the direction of making a place for myself and my preferences and my wants in the relationship. And then I get to see how he reacts to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that is actually data that we want. I want to know when I stand up for what I want, how does this guy react? Because guess what? If I have a long-term relationship with this person, that's going to happen unless I'm always going to be giving in to what he wants.
Yeah, I love that you just said that because this is exactly what I always say to my clients is valuable data, how
Yes.
he reacts to a boundary. And I actually have a mission to teach women to set boundaries in a way so that not only does it create emotional safety for themselves, but also actually the right man in his eyes, they will become more valuable and more interesting because the man who's a good match for any woman is the man who wants someone who respects herself, who loves herself, who's capable of saying no, and who is communicating that so that he also knows that when she says yes, then she is a yes. And also think that for ourselves, then when we feel comfortable saying no and setting boundaries, that we can feel our yes more clearly, right? So it's not like we're always out in this gray zone where we're not really sure if we're a yes and it feels uncomfortable to say no. Sometimes if we just decide I'm going to say no unless I'm a clear yes, that could also be a way to guide ourselves in setting boundaries.
That's so perfect because the clear yes, the way that I think about it and teach about it is that that is consent, right? That clear yes is consent. And consent can only be felt in the body, not up here in your brain. Because up here, this is where all of our programming is. I should be nice. I should let him know that I'm interested. I should make him feel comfortable. I should, maybe bend and accommodate more than I would because that means he'll ask me out again. And that's not consent. That's your programming trying to tell you how you should act to be chosen. Consent is, how does my body feel around this man or this person? Do I feel comfortable? Do I feel safe? Am I able to stay connected to what I want? How does he react when I say something that I want? Because the body cannot lie the same way that the brain can,
Mm.
because the body is responding to different information. Up in our heads, we can get very caught up in how I am supposed to be, what I am supposed to be doing, but the body has this beautiful way of just saying yes or no. And to connect to that is often revolutionary for women, because what they realize is my brain has been saying yes, but my body says no. I don't want to do this. I don't like him. I don't want to go back to his house. I don't want to be here. I don't like the way he talks about, And so being able to connect to your body, to understand the information that is coming from your body and its experience, and then to be able to develop the skills to say, you know what, I'm not comfortable with that, but be happy to meet you next week at the bar for another drink. That is essential.
Yes. And that is a beautiful way to say no, because you end by opening a new door, right? You're still telling him, hey, you still have a chance with me, but this is just too early. And then the way he responds, of course, says a lot about him and the potential for a future relationship. And I had several clients where what was sort of the missing link for them to start setting boundaries was to have a script or sort of some phrases so they could see, okay, I can actually say no in a nice way. I can just phrase it like this. And once they start using that, after a while, they become really good at phrasing their own boundaries, and it's opening a whole new world for them that now they can say no and they can feel good about it at the same time. And it's a clear no, and there's no confusion around it. What are your thoughts about having sort of small scripts? Maybe we phrase our own that we have on the phone or in the back of our mind of, this is what I can say if, like in the example before, if he asked me to come home with him, or what if he is trying to kiss me on the first date? How do I respond? What do I say?
I do that a lot with my clients, because what I find is, because of the way that we have been taught to communicate as good girls, we often start, if you can imagine like a scale with me, and 1 is here and 10 is over here, and 1 is super nice, super, super kind, very soft, very accommodating. And then 10 over here is like mean and rude. Women start their communication at a 1, trying to say it the nicest possible way, to not hurt anybody's feelings, not offend anybody. But what we sacrifice when we start at a 1 is clarity, because it sounds like, I've had a good time. I'm so grateful that, we matched with each other. The restaurant was so nice. It was so great to, get to know you a little bit. I'm not sure about, something else, but you were so nice. And I hope you've had a good time. And like, what is that person trying to say?
Yeah.
But because of our conditioning, we're supposed to make it nice. So what I actually do with my clients is I have them start at 10 out of 10, mean and rude. Not because they're going to say it that way, but because I just want them to hear what is available to them, because it's just not what we're taught to do. I also have them identify their own personal values around communication. So, for example, my values are clear and kind. I do want to be a kind person. I don't want to walk around saying, F you, and I don't never want to see you again. And so sorry that you like me, but I hate you. Right? No, I don't want to say that. but I also don't want to sacrifice clarity because it's important. So if I have a woman, she starts at 10 out of 10, I would ask her, okay, it's the end of the date. And you know you don't want to see this person again. You know that it's a no. If you were to just say it 10 out of 10, mean and rude, what would you say? And she might say like, F off. No, it's not happening. And then I ask her to feel how that feels in her body. And she's like, that feels terrifying to think about saying. I'm like, okay, that makes sense because of your programming. Let's do 9 out of 10. And she might say, I have no interest in seeing you again. How does that feel? Okay, it's very clear, but it's not yet kind. And I want it to be clear and kind.
Yep.
Okay. So 8 out of 10. I've had a nice evening getting to know you. I don't want to move forward with a second date. That's a little more kind.
Yep.
It's very clear. How do I feel about that? And again, I'm feeling it in my body. I want it to be something where it's a little bit of a stretch to say, like it's stretching my skills a little bit, but it's also consistent with my values. So 8 out of 10 feels like we're getting close, but let's try 7 out of 10. So if I were to do 7 out of 10, it might be, thanks for your time. I've enjoyed getting to know you. Moving forward with a second date is not something that I want to do, but thank you for coming to meet me tonight.
That is very kind, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
And you see how now we're at 7 out of 10
Yeah.
instead of 1 or 2, where I'm overly focused on comfort and making him comfortable. So any of your clients, you can borrow that exercise
Yeah.
to start instead of 1 out of 10 at 10 out of 10, because our programming always focuses on being kind over being clear. And we just want to switch. We want to flip that around. And usually we can get to some phrase that we can memorize and use, which I love that idea, that is consistent with our values, that is way more clear than we are usually taught to be and usually communicate.
Yeah, I love that exercise. That sounds also a lot of fun as well.
It's
And
so fun. Yeah.
yeah,
My rule is that 10 out of 10 has to have a swear word in it.
yeah. And you can swear on the podcast, by the way, if you want.
That's great. I should have asked that first because I've had a bunch of them I
You
wanted to
can
let.
just do it. I like that you say this thing about we have to check in with our body. How does it feel? Because when we talked about setting a boundary and deciding where is my boundary, what feels right for me, that is one of the difficult things, right? To feel where is my boundary, because it can be one place with one person and another person is different. And in 3 months is different again. And we can change our mind about where our boundaries are. If someone is getting too close and they don't have permission, then we have different boundaries because we want to protect ourselves. But for some women who might have been used to always focusing on other people's needs and what they want, it can be difficult to feel themselves and what they want and what is a right boundary for me.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts to share about that?
Yes. First, let's zoom out for just a second. All children are cut off from feeling what is in their bodies for the comfort of adults. Let me give you some examples. A child is crying and an adult says, stop crying, you're okay, you're fine, nothing happened, here, have a cookie, right? The child now knows, oh, my big feelings about this are bad,
Yeah.
and I can use this cookie to turn them off. This happened to me a lot where I would get angry and my parents would say, go to your room and come back out when you can be appropriate. So I learned my anger is not appropriate and I would be sent away, which is punishment when I was angry. There are children who are told, I don't care if you don't like him. He's your uncle. You go give him a hug and a kiss. Or this was a big one in my house too. You're going to sit there until you finish all your food.
Yeah.
Right? My body is telling me that I'm full. I don't want any more food. And yet I have to override what is in my body to please the big people so that I don't get in trouble. And that happens regularly for all children. And so we have to reconnect to our bodily sensations and feelings as adults. And so if you don't feel like you have a deep connection to your body and to the feelings and what they mean, yeah, that's because you were disconnected from that. Usually by well meaning adults who loved you and thought that they were trying to help you. So to reestablish that connection means to spend a lot of time and focus on how you feel, which women are taught is selfish, right? So there's a couple like double and triple whammies here where we have to work through like what my body is telling me is that I don't like this. What my body is telling me is that I don't want this or I do want that. And how do I make that okay to feel? How do I get to know my emotions as helpers, as things that have some information for me, rather than as something that I need to ignore to please other people? It's a process. But again, to feel deeply connected to yourself is what I like to call like our truest compass.
Yeah. I also remember having been told, nobody wants to see an angry face or nobody wants to see a sad face. And then we stop feeling this or we stop allowing ourselves to show it. There's another thing, and that is when we are abandoning ourselves and our true, authentic personality, for instance, in dating, because we want the man to like us. So we think about what does he want me to say and do, and what are the opinions that he has that I will agree with, and so on. I think that is really sad when we do that because this is how we attract a good match, right? Is by showing as much as possible of who we really are and having the courage to be authentic and also sometimes to show our imperfections and to be vulnerable because it is vulnerable to be ourselves, right? But that's also where I sometimes, when I say you just have to be yourself, I hear women say, yeah, but I'm not actually sure who that is. I'm not sure what it is that I want. And I guess it's a bit the same about feeling into ourselves, getting reconnected to what is really going on, and maybe cutting off the soundtrack of what is the right thing to do.
So that's where some of this other training that I've done is helpful and I kind of draw on it. So if we understand that we have multiple sub personalities and those sub personalities were formed to help me. So for example, I have a little voice in my brain that always tells me, Sara, don't be too loud. Don't say that way. You're going to make people upset. If you really share your true opinion here, people are not going to like it and you should not do that. Now, that voice specifically came about when I was young and I needed people to like me so they would take care of me. This voice wants to protect me by helping me modify my behavior so that I can be who other people want me to be. And that voice just becomes, like you said, part of the soundtrack of my brain. Don't do that. That's too much. Why are you acting like that? People are not going to like that. Lower your voice. Don't say it that way. Be nice. Be kind. What's your problem? Why are you acting like this? People aren't going to like it. Just the soundtrack that I hear. And so one of the things that I need to do is now that I'm an adult and I have different resources, and I can take care of myself a lot more than I could when I was 5 or 6, when this voice kind of came into being. I need to turn to that voice and say, I know you're so worried about that. That makes a lot of sense. I'm right here listening to you. I know that what you're worried about is being loved and accepted. I get it. And just notice how even when I say that, I feel in my body, maybe you do in yours as well, just like a little bit of settling. And then it's my job to say to that voice, guess what? We're not 5 or 6 anymore. I'm actually a 51-year-old woman who has resources. I can take care of us. And you're right. There might be people who don't like some of the things that I say. You're right. But we can handle that differently now. If that happens, I'm just going to let myself feel sad about it. And I'm going to take care of you and I'm going to take care of us because now what is more important to me is being who I really am. And I realize that that's frightening for you, but I'm right here with you. and we can handle it together.
That is an inner coach, right? To have that instead of the inner critic.
That's right. And it has several different names. Sometimes that's called reparenting, right? Like me showing up and being the parent that I wish I would have had. It's also called inner child work because so many of the parts that are worried and scared and anxious and fearful came into being when we were children and needed protection and motivation. And so being able to lovingly interact with those parts is such an essential step because then those parts feel taken care of and they can calm down because they trust that an adult is in charge
Mm.
and that adult has resources and skills and can take care of them.
That is so beautiful. And the last topic we can maybe briefly touch on is the fear of having difficult conversations. I want to point listeners to the direction of your website because I see you have a free guide on that. And I think this is also one of the things that is a process for all of us to learn. And I still sometimes struggle with having a conversation about what is wrong, where I sort of prefer to just pretend all is good, nothing is wrong. But it doesn't really work because at some point I realized, no, I need to have this conversation. Fear of taking an emotional risk, which it is, right, when you open a difficult conversation. And
Yeah.
you have some reflections on that.
Yes. One of the quotes that really I think about it a lot and it drives a lot of my work is by the philosopher, maybe even he might even be Dutch or Danish. I don't know. Friedrich Nietzsche. No, he's German. And he said, most people prefer dishonest peace over honest conflict. And I like to change it just a little bit to say, most people only know dishonest peace and they don't know how to do honest conflict. And so when you're talking about like, I know that something is wrong and I want to address it, but that makes me very nervous and I don't know how to do it. Most of the time we do. We just kind of go along with it. We don't talk about it. And women are rewarded for that. Because what happens when women speak up? We're called, pot stirrers and we rock the boat and we share our uncomfortable opinions, right? So there's even a lot of programming to recognize there. But the dynamic is the same. Dishonest peace feels heavy. It feels sad. It makes us smaller and kind of boxes us in. And we're used to that. We're used to feeling the heaviness and the sadness of a dishonest peace where I can't really say what's on my mind. I can't share my opinion. I can't count on other people in the conversation to see me and hear me. I know what that feels like, where I just have to pretend that everything is fine. So that doesn't feel good, but it's the discomfort that we know. To have honest conflict, we have to understand a couple things. Number one, conflict is actually essential for relationships to grow because sooner or later, we're going to bump into each other's differences and preferences and opinions. And at that point, we can either pretend that everything's fine and ignore it, or I could say to you, hey, I noticed that we have a difference of opinion here. And it's a little scary for me to talk about, but I'm more interested in developing a relationship with you or in seeing if we can develop a relationship where we can talk about these things. And so I just want to ask you, how do you feel about this? What are your thoughts? And then I want the chance to share with you how I feel as well. It's just a different set of skills because that it's going to feel possibly very scary to say that sentence. I'm going to feel very anxious and nervous. So it's uncomfortable to have honest conflict, but the reward is a much deeper, more vulnerable relationship where we trust each other more and we have more confidence in each other to be able to see and hear the real us.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There's no way we can avoid conflict. We
Yeah,
just need to find out how to navigate it in the best possible way. And part of it, of course, is to be able to express our own opinion and our own feelings, but also, which I have found is very difficult, listen to how the other person sees the situation from a completely different perspective. And
absolutely.
once we can see we can do that as a couple, you're right, it's so much stronger, and we feel that we're in a more healthy place and we're more trusting towards whatever comes up in the future.
It's so essential. I've been married for 26 years, almost 27. And I can honestly say that we have had at least 3 different marriages
Yeah.
in that time frame,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
The marriage we started out with is not the marriage we have now. And what allowed us to go from the different marriage iterations to where we are now is a commitment to talking about it. We
Wow.
both started out as very religious people in a very religious organization, very conservative. And then my husband decided he didn't want to do that anymore. And I felt like, I don't know if our marriage is going to last. I don't know. But we had to talk and learn how to talk. And I had to learn that his feelings mattered just as mine. And we had to learn how to make space for a different version of each other. And then things changed after that too. And then I decided I no longer wanted to be that same religious conservative person. And so then there's more talking and more talking. And so what I can absolutely say is that the ability to tolerate discomfort, to say things that I would never have said before, never imagined possible, to be able to honor parts of me that I didn't know were there until I really spent time getting to know myself, has been the reason why this relationship has lasted. And as I work with clients who want to find long lasting relationships, they often begin by thinking, oh, I just need to see what he likes and become who he wants. And it's the opposite.
Mm.
I have to know myself so deeply and love myself so completely and be so committed to me having a place in this relationship too, that we learn how to become true partners who have space for what the other person needs. And you can't learn that unless you're willing to be honest and have difficult conversations.
That is such a wise thing to end the conversation on. I think that's really beautiful. And I appreciate so much you took the time to come on here. And I know all my listeners will really have a lot of gold and a lot of valuable information that they can use for a long time. So thank you so much for taking the time. I'm going to put in the show notes the link to your website and your Instagram so people can go and sign up for the free guide and see what else you are offering.
I appreciate that. I love this conversation. I am so grateful that you asked me to come on your podcast. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure for me. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast and you want to get support from a coach on your love journey, I invite you to book a free consult call with me. You will find the link in the show notes. And also, don't forget to subscribe, and I would love it if you would rate and review this podcast, and then you'll also help other women find it.